Chapter 29. Brian POV. I finally confided in Martin about Jane, and he swiftly organized patrols to monitor the reserve, particularly the vicinity behind her hotel. It seemed that someone had breached the fence, prompting my immediate efforts to arrange for repairs. I hoped that by the end of the day, either someone would attend to it, or I would handle the task myself. After wrapping up our search at the library, Martin and I came up empty-handed. There were no traces of Jane Fernandez prior to 5 years ago, nor any individuals bearing the name Jane. Nevertheless, Martin remarked that the name rang a bell. Stepping outside, we prepared to make our way to the council chambers, intending to delve into birth records, or any available documentation such as bank statements, in hopes of uncovering more information. The only lead we managed to uncover was data from the hotel and a vague mention of Jane's hospitalization nearly 5 years ago. However, details regarding the reason or the specific department remained elusive. The receptionist informed us that she couldn't access further files for some inexplicable reason and suggested contacting the Werewolf Council for more information. That name sounds incredibly familiar, Martin remarked, his head shaking in puzzlement. It's right there on the edge of my memory. I just can't seem to place where I've heard it before, I added. And isn't it peculiar that even you couldn't access her files? Absolutely, I agreed with Martin, sharing his sense of unease. She's definitely hiding something. How can there be absolutely no records of someone with such a unique name as Jane Fernandez? I've never come across anyone with that name, yet it feels like I should know it from somewhere, Martin mused aloud. As Martin pressed the button on his key fob, expecting the comforting flash of his car's blinkers, both of us froze in disbelief. What the hell? What happened to my car? Martin exclaimed, rushing over to inspect his recently acquired vehicle, which he had chosen after admiring mine for so long. I pursed my lips, scanning the surroundings for any signs of mischief, and my gaze fell upon the security cameras mounted by the library, their lenses trained on the parking lot. Alf-hole? Martin muttered incredulously, his tone laced with indignation, as I joined him at the front of his car. It seems they've mistaken me for you. Who would dare pull a stunt like this? He growled furiously. They've tampered with your tire valves as well, I pointed out, gesturing toward the flattened tires. Anger surged through Martin, evident in the sprouting fur along his arms. He had dedicated the entirety of the previous day to meticulously cleaning and polishing his car, even insisting that I remove my shoes before stepping inside it this morning. When I get my hands on this bastard. Martin seethed, his voice thick with fury. Well, you're in luck, I interjected, halting Martin seething with a nod toward the security cameras. His expression shifted to one of anticipation, hands rubbing together in anticipation of retribution. Heads would roll once he got his hands on the culprit unless. Their asses are mine, Martin declared with a menacing growl, striding purposefully back toward the library entrance. Yet, a nagging suspicion crept into my mind. Jane's name seemed to loom over this situation. Nobody would dare touch anything that belonged to me without some ulterior motive. Despite my amusement at her audacity to seek revenge, I realized I might have to intervene to prevent the chaos Martin would inevitably unleash in his fury. As we returned to the library, the woman behind the counter greeted us with a smile, adjusting her glasses atop her nose. You're back, Alpha, Beta. What can I help you with this time? The woman greeted us warmly, her smile undeterred. I need to see your security footage, Martin demanded, his tone edged with frustration. The woman visibly flinched, her pleasant demeanor faltering. Sensing the tension escalating, I intervened, gripping Martin's shoulder and pulling him back slightly. His alpha aura surged, causing a few bystanders to glance nervously in our direction. May we have access to the security footage, please, Sophia? Someone has vandalized his car out front, I requested, trying to maintain a semblance of calm. Certainly, Alpha, right this way, Sophia responded eagerly, hopping down from her seat and disappearing behind the counter. I couldn't help but marvel at her diminutive stature as I leaned over to catch a glimpse of her. Her head barely reached the top of the desk. How did she manage to climb onto that stool? She seemed so petite that she could barely be taller than a child, and a small one at that. Martin scanned the onlookers with a fierce glare, undoubtedly searching for the culprit responsible for the vandalism. I couldn't help but chuckle, shaking my head at his intensity, before nudging him gently in the direction of Sophia, who emerged from behind the counter. Holy shit, you're short, Martin blurted out, seemingly unaware that he had spoken his thoughts aloud. Sophia shot him a glare, her expression tightening, and I quickly jabbed him in the ribs. What? It's true. She's the perfect height for. Martin began, but I cut him off abruptly. Zip it, I warned him sternly. When Martin was in this kind of mood, there was no telling what trouble he might stir up. Well, she is, Martin muttered under his breath, trailing behind Sophia as she led us to the back of the library. She unlocked a door and pushed it open, shooting Martin a disapproving look, which he conveniently ignored as he entered. I'll be at my desk if you need any assistance. The password is I love JLA123, she informed us, her demeanor aloof as she walked away, her nose held high as if it could compensate for her lack of height. Better wolf looks like a chihuahua, Martin chuckled, striding over to the laptop. He swiftly entered the password and began browsing through the files, selecting today's date and rewinding the footage. The quality of the security footage left much to be desired, but Martin paused the playback when our blurry figures appeared in the car park. We watched as we entered the library, and approximately 5 minutes later, a small yellow Volkswagen pulled in beside Martin's car. I immediately recognized not only the car but also the distinctive blue uniform worn by Zelda and the black one that Jane always sported. Their faces are too fuzzy. Does it zoom in? Martin demanded, pressing the button on the keyboard a little too forcefully. No need. I know who they are, I replied with a laugh. Who? Take me to them. I'll smack them into next week, Martin declared, his tone brimming with aggression. Whoa, slow down, Rocky. Do you really want to pick a fight with a girl? I interjected, trying to temper his impulsiveness. How do you know it's a girl? That could be anyone, Martin argued, squinting at the blurry figures on the screen. 1. Because I know the car. 2. I recognize the uniforms, I explained calmly. Martin turned in his seat to face me, his expression incredulous. It's my mate and her friend she lives with. She saw my car the other day. I bet she thought your car was mine, I chuckled, piecing the puzzle together. Your bond trashed my car? Martin snapped, his gaze fixed on the screen. Seems like it, I confirmed. Well, you better say something to her, or I will, Martin growled, his frustration palpable. Don't worry about it. I will handle it, I assured Martin, feeling a sense of responsibility to address the situation. I pulled out my phone and composed a text to Jane. Where are you? It took her a few minutes to respond.
I'm at work. Where else would I be?
Didn't happen to stop by the library today, did you?
No. Been at work all morning. Us rogues have no need for books. We aren't entitled to an education.
I sighed, realizing that Everly was either lying or unaware of what had happened. I briefly pondered the meaning behind the last part of Everly's message. It seemed like a subtle jab, perhaps aimed at me regarding something beyond my control. Whatever her intentions, it was clear that there was more to this situation than met the eye. Next time you want to vandalize my beta's car, check for security cameras, have a very pissed-off beta to deal with because of you.
Well, tell him I am sorry as Alpha is stupid. I thought it was yours. I will double-check next time.
There will be a next time?
Depends.
You were playing games with the wrong person. Jane, you won't win.
$50,000 in my bank account says otherwise. But get this, you paid $35,000 too much. The Rogue School says thank you for your considerable donation to their play equipment. Would you like mini sausage rolls and party pies to go with your frankfurts and fairy bread?
I would prefer you served on a silver platter. Think you can organize that?
I prefer gold.
Gold it is then.
Dreaming.
Only of you. So, would you like to come and apologize for your misjudgment? I accept all kinds of begging, sexual favors, but it could all be forgotten and forgiven for a simple mate mark?
Hard pass. Beta Martin should choose his friends more carefully, and his cars apparently.
The mention of Martin as Beta by Jane sparked my curiosity. How did she know his name? Martin usually stayed out of the limelight, his name rarely mentioned publicly. And the reference to a rogue school was perplexing. While there were institutions for rogues, it was unusual for someone like Jane to allocate significant funds to them. I made a mental note to investigate the rogue school attended by Jane's friend's child. Perhaps understanding her philanthropic endeavors could offer insight into her motives. But first, I needed to address Martin's vandalized car. While donating money to a rogue school might seem like a fitting retaliation, I doubted it would suffice as punishment for my grumpy beta. There had to be a more suitable way to even the score. Why are you smiling like an idiot, Brian? What about my car? Martin demanded, his frustration still evident. Send it for detailing, I replied casually, waving off his concerns. Martin let out a low growl of annoyance, but before he could protest further, I started dialing Bruce's number. Bruce was a contact at the city's police station and often handled highway patrol duties. Yes, Alpha, Bruce answered promptly. Hey, Bruce, I have a favor to ask, I began, getting straight to the point.